Today, we'll be diving into the African creation myths that involve water. And I'm focusing on water basically because water is one of the great elements in the world and it's one of the important liquids in the world in all. And it is used for many things, including spiritual cleansing. It is also seen as symbolic for bringing about life, spiritual purification, and many various aspects also. And water is dominant in the physical, social, and the spiritual environment in the world. Even in the Encyclopedia of the African Religion states that water has been at the center of the explanations of the origins of existence. And that's why we're diving into the African creation myths that involve water. Hey fam, my name is Chris Marotola. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ and a passionate apologist. Welcome to my channel where we're diving into Christian theology and we defend the faith. Kindly join me by subscribing, liking, and sharing my content so that you'll be kept updated with all. Personally, I love the African proverb that states, for you to know where you're going, you need to know where you come from. And how much more to start with the African creation myths? Huh? So, I have a great interest to know where I come from. As baPedi from South Africa, I need to know how we came about. And that is why we'll be starting with the African creation myths. Take note that a Kenyan theologian and philosopher, Mr. John Mbiti, has emphasized that African Christians have a dual heritage, of which it is the African culture and the Christian culture. And so now I have two heritages. So I do acknowledge that. And I've also determined upon myself that no part of the African cultural traditions will nullify the word of God in any way in my life. If it contradicts the Christian way of life that I have determined to live by, I will gladly die to self for the glory of Jesus Christ and nothing else. And so let's understand this. Every people have their story of beginning. And even some creation myths that cannot be well traced or well known, they can be reconstructed by tracing them from the expressions in the verbal art of our culture, the rites connected with birth, marriage, burial, and so on. What we need to keep in mind is that with African traditional religions, there is a rich and diverse history that you cannot take from us. And some of these creation myths are more than one version in them. So if I don't mention a version that you're familiar with, over strong, it doesn't mean I'm all wrong. And though this is not an attack, but I want to show you something that if you take it as an attack, suit yourself. And I get that we thought we'll be sharing with the creation myths. Some might say that these creation myths are not to be taken literal. And some might even say that they are only symbolic. But I'm going to take them literal. Basically, because mine of the Judeo-Christian creation story is a literal one. I want to get. So we balance the equation. Now, let's get into it. Firstly, we have Kemet, which says that in the beginning there was only the infinite dark and the chaotic waters of noon. From this void emerged the sun god Atum, who stood on the primordial mount of baPedi. Now, a point to consider. So Atum emerged from chaotic waters. The primordial waters from which Atum emerged are not purely symbolic, but rather they represent a form of primordial matter or substance. Please underline that line, primordial matter and substance. Basically because when you consider the Heliopolitan creation myth, Atum originally existed within an egg in the primeval waters of being born during the primordial flood and becoming the source of everything that was created after him. Well, that's why we cannot say that the primordial waters from which Atum emerged are symbolic. They are not. They are literal. Secondly, we have baPedi people from South Africa. That's me. Who are part of the three Sotho groups, Botswana, Basotho, and baPedi, which is west, south, and north, to which they trace their creation myths from water. The baPedi people also employ the symbol of the snake, the phallic snake, in their folklore to connote various forms of existence. The phallic snake is a symbol of fertility, a mediator between the underworld and the physical world, as stated by Mr. SMC Mohwajana in his folklore study by 1997, which was the untold story of the Northern Sotho mythology. Now, thirdly, we have the Zulu people from South Africa. The supreme being is Umvelinqangi. It is said that at first there was nothing but darkness. Earth was a lifeless rock, and in that darkness dwelled a god, Umvelinqangi, whose voice was like a thunder, and who, when angered, would shake the world with a face. Umvelinqangi had anger issues. Now, Umvelinqangi created a single tiny seed. He sent it to the earth. The seed was the very first life from which all other life descended. It landed in the soil and sprouted into a long reed. The reed dropped more seeds, which fell off and grew into even more reeds. This continued until they covered a whole massive swamp to the north. It is said in other versions that uNkulunkulu, the great-great-grandfather, emerged from a reed or a bed of reeds in a primordial swamp or a lake, and he pulled animals and other humans after him from the bed of reeds. Now check this. If Umvelinqangi existed in a formless void with darkness and matter, it raises the question about the nature of his existence prior to creation. Did he create the earth, or he found it already created? And I know surely there's some philosophical explanation from someone else out there. But I'm going to take this later on, because water, as seen in the Encyclopedia of the African Religion, that water is at the center of explanation for creation myths within the African context, even other contexts elsewhere as well. Now, number 4, we have the Bantu groups from YAHWEH, Chewa, Ngoni, and Tumbuka. Their creator god is Mulungu, which is said that he emerged from the primordial sea. The likes of oludamare of the Yoruba people in Nigeria. It is said that oludamare emerged from primordial waters to create the world. The Dogon people, their supreme god is Amma, of which he also emerged from the primordial waters to create the world. Nyambe, mawu-Lisa, etc. created the world out of water. Now, the problem with most of this creation myth is that the supreme beings in them emerged from water, and, or rather, used water to create the world and everything. And water in this case is matter, meaning they are not creatio ex nihilo, if I pronounce that correct. For those who don't know, this means creating out of nothing. Then it leaves to back the question, who created them? Who created the matter they emerged from? Who created the matter they used to create the world and all? Now, if you don't understand matter, time, and space, let me explain it to you. Relax, son. But people on the way now, and let me take my time with you. Time is a fundamental component used to measure and to compare the duration of the events and the intervals between them. Time had a beginning. Space is a three-dimensional extent in which objects and events occur and have a relative position and direction. It is boundless. Space is a boundless three-dimensional continuum that contains all the matter and is necessary for existence of physical phenomena. It also had a beginning. Now, matter. Matter is defined as any substance that has mass and occupies space. It exists in the various states, including solid, liquid, gas, plasma, and plasma. And it is composed of atoms and molecules. Right. So, it's interesting, right? What we are seeing is that all of these claimed supreme beings emerged from matter. Among them was matter, water, and darkness to some. Their emergence was among or within this matter. Now, who created the matter they emerged from? This also, let me just say this in passing, this also includes the demon that is known as Allah. I mean, he too is depicted to have 2 right hands, a leg, and a shin, which he will be identified with. In the hadith, they are stating that Allah has all these physical things. Now, some Salafi scholars affirm these attributes are literal. This means that Allah has a physical form, which implies that he has a mass and is bound to physical laws. I just had to add that. All right. I truly had to let that. I don't want people to die in lies and deceptive religions and demonic ones, especially. So my previous question still stands, which it also includes Allah in all of this. Is that who created them? Hmm? In all of this, for me, that's Yahweh. He's the one that created the matter. He's the one that created the time, the space, and even the supreme beings. And this shows that Yahweh is superior over all of these small g gods, because he's the God that creates out of nothing, ex nihilo, and he's outside of time, space, and matter. And they, all these gods, came to being when Yahweh, Jesus, spoke a word, because we know that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. Right? I don't want to preach. I don't know. I truly don't want to preach. Now, the law of non-contradiction, or the principle of non-contradiction, states that both cannot be true in the same sense at the same time. The creation myths cannot all be true. The creation myth cannot all be true at the same sense and at the same time. There has to be one creation story that is true. Now the question is, which one is true out of all these that I've mentioned? Let's take a 10. From Exodus, with the 10 plagues, when Yahweh was judging the gods of Egypt, whenever Moses would do something, a symbolic act, like his rod changing to become a snake, when he brought about the frogs and the locusts and all of them, the magicians and the sorcerers were able to replicate those as well. These guys were able to do miracles and wonders in simplicity if they were able to replicate those. They were able to do all these things, but they couldn't be able to fight Yahweh or lay a judgment against him as he laid a judgment against them. But Yahweh was able to judge them. All the gods that Yahweh judged, they couldn't judge back, but were able to replicate what the Judeo-Christian God did through the magicians and the sorcerers. So we see that other inferior spirits do exist. We see that they can, in a limited way, replicate what Yahweh can do, but in a limited way. But Yahweh is superior above them all. Yahweh is superior above Atum, above Umvelinqangi, above uNkulunkulu, above oludamare, Amma, and all of them. Look, the ontological status of the African gods described above and the Judeo-Christian God differs significantly. That's what's not Chewa sometimes. So, me coming from a Christian worldview, this then leaves me with one option. Anything that is opposite of God and does the accursed is not of God. These African gods within this creation myth are the fallen angels who adulterated humanity and self-proclaimed themselves to be gods to be worshipped, to be Umvelinqangi, to be oludamare, to be Amma, to be the phallic snake, to be Mudim in the superior context of the creation myth. These are inferior spirits. But Jesus is superior above them all.